In this video, I'm going to tell you 10 things that surprised me here in Vietnam. And stick around till the end. We have a special guest. She's going to tell us something that surprised her about Vietnam. Starting with the first thing is cost of living here is extremely affordable. Right now, $1 is about 24,000 Vietnamese dong. And everything you do here from accommodation, food, transportation, entertainment, regardless of what you do, your money goes a lot further than it does probably in your countries. Whether you're staying in hotels or Airbnbs, you can find accommodation anywhere from about $20 to $30 or $40, of course, a night. And it's really affordable compared to some other countries. So rent is inexpensive, and food, you can find dinner, lunch, ranging from $2 or $3 all the way up to as much as you want. But you can average about $2 or $3 a meal, which is incredible. You can easily find local dishes like banh mi or pho for just about $1 or $2 anywhere you go here in Vietnam. So it's really affordable. And of course, if you want some Western style food like fast food, KFC, or just a mid-range restaurant, it can run you about $5 to $6, which is incredible for the price of food. Next is internet. For example, SIM card for your phone for about $8 a month, and you have up to 6 gigs of data. So that's incredible too. In Canada, I now pay about $100 a month for my internet, and it wasn't even like 6 gigs a day, right? So that's affordable. Entertainment like cinemas, $4. Things like going to a park or getting ice cream, going for a walk, doing things that you normally wouldn't do because of cost of living. For example, going to theme parks or taking a domestic flight somewhere. That's the first thing. Cost of living is affordable here. The second thing that surprised me about Vietnam is cafe culture. Now, when you come here, immediately you notice how many cafes there are in major cities like Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi. So apparently the French, when they first came here, they introduced the coffee bean to the Vietnamese, and now they're one of the world's leading exports of coffee. And the cool thing about here is that you can just go anywhere, sit down at a random cafe, you get excellent customer service, try delicious coffee, and get usually a beautiful view of wherever you're sitting. So one other thing to note is that Vietnamese have their own style of coffee, right? So it's really strong, it's really tasty, and a special way of making it. They pour it into these little small containers. I don't know what you call them, maybe filters, and they use condensed milk usually, right? It's not just coffee here. I noticed that they drink everything throughout the day as far as iced coffee, drinks, smoothies, and tea. Here, green tea or iced tea is really popular here. You can find that anywhere at a fraction of the cost you pay for like a Starbucks drink or something. So if you're coming here, definitely don't miss out on trying some coffee, some traditional Vietnamese coffee, or just sitting at a random cafe. So if you're coming to Vietnam, don't miss the cafe culture, especially like this one here at the famous train street here in Hanoi. As the train passes by, I'll show you guys what I mean. The third thing that surprised me the most about Vietnam was exotic fruits. Now, Southeast Asia has some of the most exotic fruit I've ever seen. Things like dragon fruit or mangosteen, longan, lychee, some things I've never seen in Canada. And here in Vietnam, I've never seen prices this low. I think the only country that comes close is Thailand. So even just durian, for example, or jackfruit, you can find these things here in Vietnam for a fraction of the cost I've seen in other countries in the world or even Southeast Asia. So I was very surprised. For example, you can get like a kilo of dragon fruit on the street for only 10,000 Vietnamese dong. That's less than 50 cents a kilo for dragon fruit, which is amazing. Mangoes, I got mangoes at just a convenience store for 30,000 dong a kilo, just over $1 a kilo. Some places like the Philippines, for example, in the major cities, you can find mangoes for like $1 a piece when you do the math and the weight and all that. So that was really surprising for me. I knew that Vietnam would have some exotic fruits, but the prices of them really, really surprised me because now I can enjoy these fruits without worrying too much about my wallet, and I can have it daily, of course, and the taste is very unique. Some flavors I've never had before. So that's one thing that surprised me for sure. If you come into Vietnam, you get a chance to taste these fruits that you normally wouldn't taste, especially for the quantity and the quality and the prices. That was definitely a surprise for me. Surprise number 4 really revolves around traffic, motorcycles, a lot of things to do with driving and things like that. So here in Vietnam, it has the most motorcycles I've seen in anywhere in the world. There are motorcycles everywhere, and they drive onto oncoming traffic, on pedestrian lanes. And here's one thing I noticed, a lot of the motorcycles are missing the one side of the mirror. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe you know about that. Maybe you can leave in the comment section. Let me know why in Vietnam many motorcycles are missing one of their mirrors. So motorcycles here were really, really surprising to me. The sheer number of motorcycles, and they're everywhere, right? So, and the thing I noticed with traffic lights, surprisingly, they're very short, like 30 seconds or less, which is a very big contrast from the Philippines, whereas up to 180 seconds, for example. So even if you're stuck in traffic, you always feel like you're moving a little bit at a time. And people here don't always obey the red light, so be careful when you're crossing the road. Whether it's a green light, a zebra crossing, do not rely heavily on the traffic signs themselves. You definitely got to watch both ways. Also, they leave 3 seconds before the lights turn green and continue to go through the red light about 3 or 5 seconds after. So just be sure you're very careful when driving here. So traffic, motorcycles, and the whole dynamic of the way they ride here, but it's understood by everybody. Nobody here gets upset. You don't usually hear people honking when somebody comes onto oncoming traffic or does a U-turn. Everybody is aware. Basically, it's not the right of way, it's the right of space. Whoever can get there first has the right of way, and the bigger your vehicle, the more power you have on the road. So sometimes cars or SUV will just go through, just honk their horn, and people have to get out of the way. So that was definitely a big surprise to me. It can be a challenge, but definitely exciting to manage and deal with the traffic here in Vietnam. Number 5 is communism. The CPV, the Communist Party of Vietnam, started in 1930 and still is a majority government here. I'm not very political. I don't really understand the dynamics or the way politics work in Vietnam, but it's obvious that it's a communist country. Of course, the red flag, the yellow star, all those things represent communism in this country. I'm not really sure how that affects the people and way of life here, but if you know something about that, please let me know in the comment section. I'm not really a political person, but I'm always open to educate myself. Of course, if you're coming here, that's something that might surprise you if you're coming from a democratic government system or just any government system. And over here, sometimes some places have curfews. I don't know if that's to do with communism, the good of the people, so they can sleep at night, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, they close the community gates. I haven't experienced that because my Airbnb, that rule doesn't apply. But that was surprising to me that Vietnam was a communist country because it is in Asia. I think it's the first Asian country, China, right? That I've been to, that's a communist country. So that was a surprise for me. Going on to number 6. Number 6 is kind of a funny thing, not really important, but definitely a surprise to me, how small the tables and chairs are at outdoor dining restaurants. Here in Vietnam, they do have very small little tables, usually yellow or red in color. People sit on these to have a beer, have a meal, have a coffee. It's very common to see extremely small chairs and tables at restaurants. And this is something I think that's culturally comes from sitting on the ground, I assume, and they've kind of just upgraded that a little bit by having maybe 6 or 8 inches off the floor. So if you have knee problems like me, or very tall, or you just have not sat down that low to the ground in a while, you might find that a bit surprising. For me, it was surprising, but I'm okay with it because I feel like a local, right? So I get to enjoy that surrounding, that setting, that environment with those people around me sitting and eating. It can be a tad uncomfortable. It is for me because in the heat and just to maneuver yourself, sometimes it gets really busy, but it's not a big deal. It's part of traveling. You experience different things. If that becomes an issue for you, you could simply eat while sitting at a regular side table at a restaurant, like a mid-range restaurant or inside of a mall or something like that. But that was definitely a surprise to me. However, I feel like it's part of the normal thing here. A lot of people go out in the afternoons and the evenings, especially younger people. They tend to spend their time outside sitting on these chairs, enjoying a beer or a cold drink. Number 7 is French influence in Vietnam. I had no idea that the French ruled Vietnam from the mid-1800s until the mid-1900s. That was something that was a surprise for me, of course. Vietnamese independence, I think, officially was in 1945, but didn't take place or didn't take effect or actually kick in until 1976, something around that. So I'm not very sure about the dates, but yeah, that was something new to me. I had no idea the influence French had on Vietnam. Things such as architecture. Now, I'm not an architect, but it's very obvious to see French influence in architecture here, whether it's government buildings, museums, or just regular residential homes here. You can see narrow pillars and the verandas and the balconies, and it's a really unique touch because you don't really know where you are sometimes if you're in Vietnam, unless you see the Vietnamese motorbikes and the food and the smells and all that. So that was kind of interesting to see how much influence the French had over Vietnam and in the history itself. One more thing, the baguette, right? So even the banh mi sandwich, the baguette was introduced by the French, and coffee as well, right? So coffee was introduced by the French here, which is a really, really significant reason why coffee culture is so popular here in Vietnam. And of course, not to mention Catholicism, right? So the religion, especially in the South, the French brought that over as well, the missionaries. So that's still evident in today's society as well. So that was another surprise for me, and the French influence, that was number 7. Surprise number 8 is a diversity in food. Now, I've only heard of a few food items of Vietnam before coming here, just two to be honest, the banh mi and the pho. But over here, if you're sitting down to eat, you get a variety of different things. Now, typically, from what I understand, Vietnamese meals consist of three things: a soup item, starch like rice, and meat. So people sit here and share the meals like family style. It's really cool to see the number of different items you can have going to a restaurant. It's very diverse and you get that French fusion. Even the famous pho I hear came from like a French beef stew, for example. The diversity can be seen at local restaurants, street food vendors, anywhere you go, even like fancy restaurants, you can have a plethora of options to choose from. So keep that in mind. Number 9 is being conservative. I had no idea Vietnamese culture was so conservative. I feel like the women especially tend to be a bit more conservative, wearing long dresses. They don't show too much cleavage or dress provocatively. Even like dating here, I understand that you can't just come here and expect to find a date immediately. People tend to be here for a serious relationship or long term. So if you're coming here to date someone, be sure that you're aware of that it's not that easy. Of course, if you go to the bars or whatever, I might find someone that will, fancy that. But I feel like here, overall, generally speaking, it's a tad more conservative than I had assumed compared to some other Southeast Asian countries. Number 10 is humidity. So this is the weather speaking. It's very hot here. It gets reached 35, 36 degrees. However, it's not as humid as Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia. At least I don't feel like it. So although the weather is beautiful, the sunshine a lot of times, it is still rainy season right now. I just don't feel that humidity as much as I would feel it in some other countries. So that was a really big surprise for me, coming in at number 10. And that's it, guys. Leave your comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Which of these 10 surprises surprised you? Or if you've been to Vietnam, what were some of your surprises? Leave your comments down below. If you take the time to write it, I take the time to respond. Now let's go ahead and ask one of our special guests here what their surprise was here in Vietnam. Let's go. Hello, Palm. So what was your surprise about Vietnam?
Uh, Let me think. Actually, I came here last time, like 2 months ago. I kind of surprised though that here have a lot of Thai people come to travel in Vietnam, which is I didn't expect that at all. Like 70% of people around me speak Thai, so that's my first surprise. And another thing, because I only know just for the food, I'm gonna take yeah. I'm gonna talking about the food, and I thought like for it's just like the delicious thing here, but it's not just the only thing. Like every food, every Vietnamese food is so amazing. I really enjoy every single dish here. That's really surprised me. Like I think it can live here a long time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your surprises about Vietnam. And if you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We just crossed 100,000 subscribers, so I'm very excited about that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.